Crystal, how about at the county?
So it was about 3 years ago that we started on a journey to really transform the way in which recruiting was done with Maricopa County. Very similar to what's been shared with other organizations. We do have a central recruiting division that's responsible for helping the field staff get the right posting up, making sure that it meets all of the qualifications and those types of things. But really, we do depend on the field staff and the field managers to make those hiring decisions. And so when I started, there were many positions that would take 3-4 months to fill. And we set it as a strategic goal that all of our positions would be filled within 45 days. So I'm happy to announce that right now we're actually under 33 days as an average for all of our positions. We do, just like Kari mentioned, we do have some unique scenarios where some of our higher level positions or difficult to recruit positions do take a little bit longer than that. So I don't want to make it sound like all of them are less than that, but it's really to enhance the candidate experience, because when you're applying for a job with us, we want to make sure that you're engaged and really interested in the position. And if we're not responsive to you or we let things set, I just don't think that that is a good reflection upon our practices. So I'm excited to say that that's something that the county has embraced across all of the departments, and it's something that I'd like to brag about a little bit. One other thing that I think is just a little bit unique to us is we've actually we've partnered with a company called Spark Hire, and Spark Hire does one-way virtual interviewing. So I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to kind of look into that, but this is how we're meeting our candidates for the first time now. Of course, we no longer allow panel interviews in person because we want to make sure that we are adhering to COVID-19 restrictions and all the mitigating, things that we can to make sure that everybody stays safe. So Spark Hire has really been amazing for us because as our recruiters narrow down the recruiting list to make sure that you meet the minimum qualifications and that your education is exactly where it needs to be. That's something that we typically launch to all candidates who apply for positions and meet those qualifications. So you have an opportunity to really shine. It's very similar to a phone interview, except you get to record yourself and we get to see your smile through those interviews and your responses. So that helps a lot because it's engaging for us and it's a little bit of a different tone, I guess, when we set the space for that. We do, depending on positions, Spark Hire is usually just the beginning of our interview process. We do have interviews after that. It can be panel interviews, but they're all done, like I said, they're all done virtually now. So there's a lot of, kind of arrangements that need to be made. We communicate electronically a lot. So we'll give you the opportunity to sign up for interview slots that make the most sense for you. So it really does continue to focus on that candidate experience. One thing that we're currently limited with kind of a system limitation is we don't have a way for our candidates to really set job profile alerts if they want to work for Maricopa County, but maybe the position that they're interested in isn't open today. That's actually something that we're getting ready to move towards. So we are moving forward with a new HRIS system. And our new HRIS system is going to continue to enhance the candidate experience by allowing resume parsing to occur, saving your candidate profile with your jobs and your skills and your abilities to help alert us if positions come available and send those notifications directly to you. So it's a quick way for us to get connected. Social media is also a really great way to stay connected with the jobs that are posted at the county. We've got an entire social media strategy based around, how do we market and advertise to the population that's interested in what we do.
Thank you, Crystal. If I could, I'm going to move on to Nancy. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening in the Department of Economic Security?
Certainly, it wasn't too different from what the first Laurie mentioned. So, but our division is, I'm reading off because I handle the very first part. I get you in and then hand that off to a whole group of other people, but I'll definitely walk you through the steps. So the division is responsible for hiring and posting. And after the close date, they have 3 days to review your resume and your application. And so I sometimes get people who go, I haven't heard from anybody. That's because if the the ad is open for 30 days, you're not going to hear from anybody until after it's closed. And then that 3-day period that gives them a chance to review those resumes. So that's something to know. They contact the applicant, and then they set up a phone interview. And then we also have Google Meet. So you will do some virtual interviewing. And then if you are fortunate to be moving forward, they'll send you the second part of the application. Application part 2 is that part that gives us permission to run your background checks and criminal history and things of that nature. So you'll sign off on that. And we will probably also send you something called the predictive index. So this is an assessment. It's not a test, but it's just an assessment to find out if you were a good fit for the role. And not just a good fit, I mean, because that wouldn't cancel you out if, let's say, you weren't a good fit. It gives us feedback on how we would be able to best help you be a good fit for the role, and what strengths we need to that have been identified, and what weaknesses that we can work on with you to help build you into a stronger person for the role, if you will. And then there are just general levels of interviews after the interview. So that just means that depending on if it's an entry-level position, you might only get interviewed once and you're good to go. So my position that I've been raving about, the unemployment insurance specialist, that's a one and done interview and you're good to go. But then if you are going for a much higher, maybe a permanent position, again, that position is temporary, a permanent position, you might have 2 interviews. If you're going to be working with Central Human Resource Director or executive levels and things of that nature, you might have 3 interviews. So just to give you an idea of how that process would work. And then after we do your background references and background references, we provide you an offer letter. And so then that goes through, once you return that information back, we get you started with our onboarding process. And so, yeah, that is basically it. We are a 45-day hiring organization as well. That's our target number. Obviously, for temporary positions like the unemployment insurance specialist, we hire very quickly within 3 weeks or less. We hire every 2 weeks. So every pay period, we are hiring and bringing people in. So we always just say the next class is in 2 weeks. So that's a very quick one. And typically our jobs are posted for 30 days. So you could apply in April. You graduate, finish our finals or whatnot, apply in April, and you could potentially be starting in May or early June. And just like Laurie's partner said, we also have that flexibility too. So if you needed to finish up, then definitely we're able to push your offer off, or you need to give 2 weeks notice to an employer, things of that nature. We definitely work with you. I hope that information helps.
Thank you. And Charmion, if we could wrap with you, things you would add about the City of Phoenix's process.
It's very similar to, I would say, I think it was Kari was the first person, and then Nancy, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of similar in terms of Kari nicely stated how they put the standard rec, the supervisor has to give permission. We put a standard rec in, and that lets us know as the hiring manager, as the HR person, that the hiring manager has the right to do the recruitment. But some things that might be a little bit different, or that I want to highlight, is we have to have a list of qualified candidates to choose from. So we are required to do what's called an eligible list, like a lot of other large public municipalities. And that's that big question I always get when I'm doing outreach with a lot of people, like, what's up with this eligible list? So that just means that you meet the minimum qualifications to the recruitment, the very minimum. It doesn't mean that you're going to be picked for an interview necessarily, but that is a first important step, is to get on that, complete your application and make sure you get on the eligible list. And that's where we're going to decide, hey, we might have 100 people who have applied and met those minimums. And then we can narrow our list down. And some popular things that I also like to highlight is how we narrow those lists down, because we get a lot of those questions, is we use the actual questions that you answered. And I tell people it's like statistics. We call that a select certification report. So sometimes if the list is really large, like if you got 100, 200, 300 people, The supervisor is going to look at the list of questions, pick those questions out, send it to our HR aides, have them narrow that list down. Another popular thing out, and it's really important to keep your information, your contact information current, your email address, and all that kind of stuff, because we do communicate electronically, and we use a lot of SurveyMonkey as well. So after you've done the application, depending on the position, say it's a secretary position, well, we might have a secretary in parks or a secretary in police that might have a little bit different, they might require a little bit different maybe in the scheduling or the skill set. So we may send you a SurveyMonkey out just to ask, hey, do you want to work for police, let's say, or some other pertinent questions outside of the generic questions that we did in the application. Our process, and we do, once we put those postings up, Indeed picks that up. And then depending on, because we have so many different departments in so many different industries within the city of Phoenix, we may do some extra advertising, and we may put that on LinkedIn, we may put it on Indeed or some other, it depends on what that industry, like it might be a special industry group. For instance, I did one with public arts, and they had a special industry group that candidates would look for those jobs on that particular website. So those are some things I probably want to highlight. I would say it is hard for me to say, because I have seen it where it's gone, like you said, it has gone really fast for some positions, especially like you said, the part-time positions, or if we have a mass, like the library or water, they may do a mass hiring process to get people in and out. But we are trying to do a mix of like what the two of our panelists said, like we do the one and dones for the our pay grade 35s and lower to get it done faster. But we do a lot of panel interviewing. We are doing virtual, mostly virtual. I can't say that they're all virtual, because we do have police and fire that they like to see people in person, of course. But a lot of our other departments are using virtual methods like WebEx. We give them the option to use WebEx, Skype, or and we're using Microsoft Teams, which I actually really like right now. Skype, I'm gonna be honest, is so-so. So those are some options that we're giving people. They could do it on the phone as well, like if they want to do a follow-up interview for those one and dones. But I just wanted to give that real quick so we can get moving, but kind of similar to a couple of the panelists.
Okay. All right, thank you all for that information. I'm sure the students were taking note and have a little better idea about that process and timeline based on that. So we're going to do a couple of lightning rounds, right? So I want to ask the panelists to maybe keep your response to a minute or less, and be sure that you're giving us kind of your top 2 tips that you want to share with regard to first round. Let's talk about either something specific to the application or the materials that they might attach to the application, like the resume or a letter of interest, whatever you ask for within your processes. But what 1 or 2 things do you want the students to leave with that would help them get screened in as a part of that application process? Okay. And again, lightning round, we'll just move right through. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go backwards from where I started. So Charmion, you want to kick us off?
All right. Okay. One of my big things is make sure you're completely following directions. I know that sounds, but that really can be the difference between you and getting another job. So I would say really take the time. You can, in our application, you can look at the questions first, and you can copy them on a Microsoft Word document and copy and paste those. So give yourself some time to answer those. If we have it open for 2 weeks, don't wait till 11:30 the night before, because it will time out on you. So that's one of my big things. And then on your resume, I'll just say this last, quantify what you do, and always do a cover letter and a resume. So I'll make that fast.
Okay, got a couple or a few in there. Nancy, how about you? Top tips.
You always give me plenty of time to be ready. So two things. I would say we recently launched Page Up. It's our new platform for applying through this to the state job board. So know that you have to apply through the state job board. And once they send you an application, you need to fill the application out. It's all going to be digital. So you need to check your spam folder, really be looking for the information that we're sending you, because all through the application process. So remember when I said you have application 1 and application 2, all of those are going to be sent out to you through Page Up. And then it's all going to be, you're going to need to digitally sign. So just be prepared for that. So that's the one thing. And then the second thing I would tell everyone, for DES, we literally, and in many of our job descriptions, you will find the contact person who is the recruiter. So if you can't get a hold of me, why don't you just reach out to the recruiter and ask for the status of your application? I think that's a great way to get your name on their lips and their ears and be able to show that you are eager to work there. So those would be my two things.
Great. And then I think we're back to Crystal.
All of our recruitments begin with jobs.maricopa.gov. And so really I echo the comment about taking the time to complete your application correctly. I believe it's important to tailor your resume to the specific job, including your objective statement, because we're going to capture that right away. We will look for details such as minimum qualifications, education and experience. So those are things that we'll go through with that process, but those pieces are important. And the cover letter piece of adding, your passion about the job and why you would stand out amongst any other candidate is a really good thing to add. We do have knockout questions. So we call them supplemental questions. And so really pay attention to the questions that you're answering when you're getting ready to complete those resumes or complete your application, because if you answer one question incorrectly, you may never make it to a recruiter.
Thank you. Laurie? You're still muted.
I even had my cursor right on the microphone. I just got excited. I just want to expand a little bit more on making sure to read the instructions that are given. We have some unique situations where we post on AZ state jobs for the state, and we have a link that takes you to our site, because when you apply through the state, all of your information that gets put in and you get hired, it goes right into their human resource information system. Ours doesn't, because we're legislative. We're a legislative branch, not an executive branch. So it comes to our agency separately. So look to see if where you're posting tells you in the instructions to go to this link. Go to that link, find the instructions that you need, and apply as it says. The other thing is, the other tip, and I'm sure everybody would agree, it's proofread, 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 proofread. Have somebody else proofread for you. From time to time, you get an application that says, you're sending it to a different agency and they're applying for a job with us. So it's the attention to detail. And, we're not naive to know that we're the only place. We'd love it if we were the only place that somebody was applying for, but we realize that's not the case. So if you're using some of the same formatting, some of the same word choices, make sure that somebody else is looking at it when you're modifying it for another position for which you're applying, just to make sure that you're looking as your best possible and that you did not, sometimes when you're looking at it, you just don't see it. And somebody else is coming at it with fresh eyes and can find something that you might go, oops, how did I miss that? So those are mine too.
Great. Scott, anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I would give the advice of write simply and concisely. So I can't tell you how many cover letters I see that say, I was joyfully exuberant to discover this position that you had available for employment. Why can't you just say you were happy to find this job posted? So write simply in your cover letter, write like a human, make sure that your resume conveys the special skills and the special personality that you would bring to the employment, because that's part of assessing fit. And I guess the one thing I would I don't know if Crystal and I would disagree on this, but I am all in favor of getting rid of the objective statement in your resume. We all know you're wanting a job. We all know that's why you're applying with us. So just really use your resume space wisely, keep it short, keep it concise, and think about how do these particular experiences I'm listing on my resume help qualify me for the position I'm applying for.
Thank you. Thank you. And Kari?
What has not been said? First, be honest. Know what your resume says, know what your application says, and be honest about it. Because when you go into the interview or oral board panel and they ask you a question, they might be reviewing your resume or application at that same time, or they reviewed it before you walked into the room or did a virtual interview. So be honest. You don't want to be caught lying. That's automatic disqualification. And another thing I could think of is when you are applying, clean up your social media posts. A lot of employers nowadays are looking at Instagram and Facebook and what you post. And for our police department positions, you go through a full background, and our background investigator is awesome. She will go all the way back to the day you open Facebook and will question you on your Facebook post. So be aware of what you've posted in the past, and we change. I mean, from when you're 16 years old to 25 years old, there might be, different stuff that you thought before at 16 compared to 25. So clean up your social media posts, definitely.
Thank you. I think good advice on all of those things. And some of you are putting some questions in the chat. We'll follow up on a few of those things. And you also will have the opportunity during the breakout groups to ask individual questions of the representatives. Kari, I'm going to go back through the other way again on our second lightning round. And the question was your top 2 tips on for the interview, how to stand out in the interview.
Okay. One, I wrote down a couple here. One of them is rehearse with somebody. It is awesome and great experience for you to practice. So practice with somebody who's going to tell you the truth. Maybe not necessarily a friend, maybe a coworker. If you're going for a promotion, it might be a supervisor that will be honest and give you tips on what you can do. At Peoria, you can contact HR and do a mock interview. We'll help you with interviewing. So that's a good way to practice and learn different tips on, how to interview better. And preparing, research the company. It's amazing when you're interviewing somebody and they know a little bit history of the company or more about the position and maybe the department. So definitely do some research. You'll stand out when you can just describe a little bit of information about the company. It shows that you're really interested.
Thank you, Kari. Scott, how about you? What would you say they can do to stand out when you're interviewing?
The first thing I would say is I think it's totally professionally appropriate to ask your contact who you're going to be interviewing with. So if they haven't already told you who you're going to be meeting with, I think it's professional and totally appropriate for you to ask that question and do a little bit of background search on them. What are their set of skills? How have they progressed through the company? What are their previous experiences? Because I think that helps you kind of get that personal element in the interview that makes them remember you a little bit more than just being kind of stoic. The second thing, and I would emphasize a point that Kari made, is do a little bit of homework so that number one, you come across as knowledgeable and interested, but number two, at the end of the interview where they ask the inevitable question of what questions do you have for us, you can ask sensible, meaningful questions and not just be like, oh, I think I know everything. Clearly that's not the case, and that's something that really bugs me is at the end of the interview, I don't have any questions. Okay, well that kind of signals to me that you haven't done your homework, that you're not prepared, you're not genuinely interested in our position, and so it's an easy way to start to cut people from the position. So,
thank you, Laurie. What would you like to add?
Let's see. Sometimes one of the things that I know our HR specialist will do is that she might say, you know, before the interview, why don't you take a look here? Why don't you click on this link and learn more about us? So it's another way to make sure that you do a little bit of homework prior to coming into that interview. You're prepared. You've got some good questions that you want to ask the people that you're interviewing with, and you know a little bit more about the business. Let's see. Give yourself some time, a short period of time, to sometimes think of some good answers. So you've got a question thrown at you. It's kind of like the beauty pageant process, I think, where they'll repeat a question. And that's supposed to give you enough time to kind of think through what your answer is going to be. Now, you're certainly not going to want to do that with every single question, because you do want to come into the interview prepared, taking a look at the description of the job to which you're applying for, the qualifications that they're looking for, the experiences required, and be prepared with examples of things that you've done in prior jobs, on prior projects, and in school, and on committees and organizations. And so that's getting yourself prepared so you do come up with some quick responses, but there might be a question that throws you a little bit, or you just weren't as prepared, and that might give you a little bit more time to put some thoughts together and some word choices. So.
Great. Crystal, your top two?
So along the lines of what Laurie was mentioning is interview preparation. And I tend to prepare, you know, I think about my 5 best moments in my career. And I write those down, and then I use the STAR format. So the STAR format, it's an acronym. It stands for situation, task, action, results. So each of those scenarios, each of those 5 proudest moments that I have, I walk through and I literally write down, what was the situation? What was the task at hand? What actions did I take? And what was the result? And I found that I do that for the 5 best moments and then my 2 not so hot moments. And I've been pretty successful. I feel I've been successful anyway with answering any questions that are thrown at me with one of those responses, because I've prepared 5 different scenarios of things that usually fall into collaboration, experience, process improvement, something like that. So they're pretty general, where you can use any of those responses for those areas. So it's helped me prepare. And I do tend to, you know, I like the writing it out because it reminds me that, hey, I need to explain to the people, the panel, you know, what the situation was, what tasks I was doing, what were my actions, and what were my results. What I've seen oftentimes is that candidates tend to respond in generalities. And that is a not such a great thing when we're looking for interviewing practices. We want you to give role specific examples. And if you can walk through that STAR format, that'll help you answer the majority of the questions. The second piece is just please be prepared to do that in 2 to 3 minutes for each question. Going for a really long extended period of time, you're going to lose your panel's attention, and sometimes we use filler words just like I did, and those things tend to be distractions for panelists as well. So those are the 2 tips I'd give.
Thank you, Crystal. Nancy, you're up.
All right, Crystal took mine, but you did say to have more than one, so I'll skip to another one. But one thing that I would encourage you to know is that if you've gotten to the interview process, then then what they're looking for now is, are you a good fit? So I want you to calm down, take a deep breath, know that you've met all the qualifications for your resume, told them that you can do the job. Now you're just going in to prove a couple of things. Can you do the job by answering the questions based on the experiences that you've already had? You mentioned using the STAR method. Do I like you? That's one thing that they're looking for. Are you somebody that they like? I mean, and then the last one is, will you fit in well with their team? So those are 3 things that I would say that you should just be aware of when you go in for that interview. And then what's another second tip for you? I know that you're out there applying to all types of jobs, and something that I would say, and I'm sure there's many other tips that I can give you, but one thing that I will say is when you keep track of what you're applying to. It's nothing worse than when I call you up, and then you don't know what I'm talking about. You applied to me, but then you don't know what job it was. You're confused. Just keep track of it. We actually send, after you apply through us, we'll send you a copy of the application, so you can even just kind of keep it in its own folder. On this day, these are all the places that I applied to, so that when you do get that phone call, you can go, hold on for me real quick. Yes, I did apply to that position. I just want to pull up the job description so that I can be better prepared to speak with you. That I would wait for and be excited for somebody who took the time to do that, as opposed to asking me questions that they should already know about the position that they applied to. So I hope those two things helped. Thank you.
Okay, and finally, Charmion.
All right, I was going to do that STAR method as well, but because that is so important. But I do have something that I think will help, because we're doing a lot of virtual interviews. People, you want to remember to test your technology before the interview, right? You want to make sure it's in working condition, make sure your audio and your video is working well. And you want to minimize the distractions. A lot of us are working from home now, and it is difficult. The dog might be barking outside or the trash man might be outside. But if the best, check your lighting, check the distractions in the home, and make sure you have enough privacy to complete that interview. So that's something I would definitely. And then just another thing that I think it's always great to have a 30 to 60-second elevator speech as well, because I think it's a great way to introduce yourself during the interview process. If you have an idea of what especially if you have transferable skill sets for a new job, you're going to make sure you have all your education, knowledge, skills, and abilities and your experience wrapped up in that 30 to 60 second. Or you could use it as an ending as well. One of my supervisors used to call it their Martin Luther King, I have a dream speech at the end, right? Where you're gonna give your best foot forward. Like they said, always have those questions ready, but have that extra, if there's anything else to add, always add something else that you can reiterate something that you said in the interview, but you also may have something new to add that you forgot to mention during the interview. So those are my tips to add to everyone. Everyone gave some great examples.
Mary Jo, can I add one thing? I think it's really important for you all to keep in mind as well that don't take rejection personally, because all of these tips that we have for everybody, there could just be a candidate that's a slightly better fit. It doesn't mean that you failed or that you didn't have the skills. You're not going to get every job you apply to, and in fact, you're not going to get most of the jobs you apply to. So don't take rejection personally. Be confident in your skills and just make sure you keep going. I think that's a really important thing to just stay encouraged as well.
Yes.
Thank you for adding that, Scott.
Can I add one other thing just to piggyback on that? I love that, Scott. Thank you so much. And then I promise I'll stop talking. But just know, when I mentioned being a good fit, when you go to the interview, be confident, because they want you to do good. They want you to do well. So they're not there critiquing you what a terrible person you are. They're actually rooting for you to do a great job, so that we don't have to start over with looking for another person. Okay. Just another way.
I appreciate that. We're at our mark where we were going to be finished even with our Q&A. So it takes a little bit of time to set up for me to set up the breakout groups. So here's what I propose. We're looking maybe at a 5-minute break. I've asked, I will ask this of our panelists, if you wouldn't mind scrolling through the chat to see some of the follow-up questions that people are posting. And if you have a response to that, please put it in the chat. That will be recorded as a part of the thing, and then students will be able to go back to that. those that were participating and those that weren't, but might have that question. And then I asked Reagan if she would, while I'm putting together the breakout groups, if she would, I said maybe 3 questions in 15 minutes, but since we're just taking 5, let's, pick a question or something from the last hour that you'd like to, and other students might like to see us follow up on. If you would just pick one of those things, and any of the panelists who want to chime in on that can respond to that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be putting together some groups. So if you're planning to stay with us for the next 45 minutes, then please do. I'm going to go ahead and just randomly assign groups, at least one of our panelists to each group. And then probably it looks like 3 to 4 students with the group. And my directions would be this. This is your opportunity. You've heard from these people now, who they are, what they're all about, how they might be able to help you with your interests in their agency or their organization, or even the type of work that they do. So the breakout session is time for you to introduce yourself to them and make sure that they know you based on your attendance at this event. And so give them your name and your best 30-second introduction, okay, which I asked you in preparation to kind of think about. Your name and your degree, when you're planning on completing, maybe a little bit what kind of work you're looking for, or what's been your favorite thing in the program or lately that you've done in a class, kind of stuff. So they get a little information like we got about them, about you in that thing. And then if I could ask the facilitators in the breakout group when you get there to hear those 3 introductions and any questions they're posing, and then address the questions. So they'll already know you. Now you'll get a chance to know them, and then maybe address some questions during that time. And it looks like we'll probably do maybe 2 sessions instead of 3 of our 12-minute sessions, and you'll get a 1-minute warning when I call you back to the group, and you'll get an invitation to join a group once I get those things set up. So Reagan, I'm going to let you take it away. You've had a chance maybe to look through the chat and see if there's something that you're interested in addressing and would like our panelists to address. Panelists, if you do the same and respond to anything that she asks, we'll get you set up and you'll get your invitation to join a group.
Sure, yep. So one question I saw in the group chat here, it says, can you talk a little bit more about quantifying your resume? For example, should you include generic job duties if it might not be clear or inferred from the job title? I forget who mentioned quantifying your resume. So
I think
yeah,
it was me, I think, because that's what I always tell everyone. And so what I meant about quantifying is that really makes your resume pop. So say you handled a $1 million budget, you want to make sure you put that somewhere in your resume or cover letter if it makes sense for that job. If you're supervising people, for instance, you want to say, hey, I can supervise 10 to 15 people. I've done that on this job for this amount of time. You want to use numbers in any way possible, whether it's percentages, dollar amounts, people you supervise. I used to, when I was a case manager, it was really key to put down the number of people you can manage on a caseload. And also would put the percentages of where, like if I met my goals, in case management, I would say, hey, I met my if it was 100% score that I had to get, hey, I met 90% plus that for the year. You want to say that in your interview and you want to say that on your resume to make it really makes you stand out. Because when we're looking through resumes, it can, just being honest, when you're looking through tons of resumes, they can be quite mundane if you don't stand out in some kind of way. So you, another thing, even though this is not about quantifying, that I wanted to mention earlier, I use, well, this is more interviewing probably, creative adjectives to describe yourself, that, but also that, I have to agree with one of our other panelists, you want to make it make sense for that job, of course. But I have a pet peeve about using the word teammate all the time, because we're all, you know, I mean, I'm a great teammate, or I have this, you know, we use that word so much. I want to hear about you and descriptive words about you, you know. So that's all I wanted to say about that. But I hope that answered your question about quantifying. Anything with percentages, timelines that you met. You know, this was given to me for a 6-month timeline. I met it in 3 months. That makes you stand out in your interview and on your resume.
Lydia, does that answer your question? I know that I saw you posted that.
Great.
Perfect. And Rob, I was going to pass off. I saw you had a question in the chat. Would you like to share with the group, or would you like me to read?
I'll chime in if you don't mind, Reagan. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
My question is about students. I'll just share a little bit about myself. I used to be a local news reporter, had a career in journalism for a number of years, have since gotten out of that. And I currently work for a local government entity here. And I was just curious how to leverage past experience in a different industry or a different career, aside from mentioning it in the cover letter. And also, should applicants who do have experience in a past career aim for potentially different jobs than applicants who, you know, have just kind of plowed through the MPA program through school?
I can take a stab at that, Rob. I would say that there are going to be a set of transferable skills or common skills that are applicable in almost every job, one of which is writing. So obviously, being a reporter would be a very valuable skill to be able to demonstrate that you have the capability to write at a professional and advanced level. So I would say really look for those common themes or common transferable skills that would apply to most employment type situations, and use those on your resume as a way to demonstrate that even though your experience may not be in the same industry, you do have experience that relates to the capabilities that are required for the job. So I would say that that's what I would recommend for that.
Thank you.
Can I add something real quick? I don't know if anyone, I'll wait to see if anyone else has anything to add, but I do.
I was just going to add really quick is when you're interviewing, try not to get tunnel vision. I know I do that, and I think, okay, I'm applying for an HR position. I'm only thinking of HR related stuff, and you don't want to do that. You want to think about your past experience and how it relates to the position. And that's something that you can prepare for.
Mary Jo, would you like us to keep going, or are you ready for us?
I'm just about ready, I think, to open the rooms. So again, instructions, when you get with your group, it looks like 3 to 4 candidates with each of the presenters as it shook out. And so introduce yourself, go around and make sure everybody gets a chance to introduce themselves to the presenter or panelist, and then panelists, please feel free to talk about your organization and opportunities that you have, and the students to ask those questions that you have and that maybe we didn't get to here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms, and like I said, you will get a little 1-minute message when we're going to come back and switch, and then it goes quicker the second time around. I feel like with any networking, speed networking event, it's tough to pull you away from those groups that you've got started. But want to be definitely cognizant of everybody's time who's participating. And my closing remarks really some thank yous for 4 different groups. First and foremost, round of applause for our panelists. Thank them for providing an introduction about themselves and a little bit that you might have found something in common and could relate to, identifying the processes for applying and getting engaged with their organizations, some tips for you to stand out in those processes that take place, and also be aware or remember, I hope, the various departments that each of them said they represented, or agencies or divisions within the organization with which they work. And so they can be a real lead for you into some of those things. And panelists, as was asked before, if you would like me to, if I have your permission, to include your contact information and send that to the students, please let me know. And I will follow up by doing that with each of our participants. And the follow-up, the action for you to take as students is, of course, to follow up with these relationships that you just got started with these folks, and use that to create an advantage for yourself and leverage your participation today. The second group I want to thank is the leadership of the student chapter. Trey, Reagan, Anessa, and Justa, and thank you for being here today, for your ideas and your leadership to get these kinds of things going, and your willingness to host these programs and make this happen for us. And the action for the student participants today is join the chapter. And Trace provided that link right at the beginning of the chat for you there. Get the information that you need, and we'll follow up with you with regard to that. I also want to thank Tom Holland and Cynthia Stillhammer, who are the faculty support for the chapter, and they both joined us today. And help to promote things with us. And finally, I want to thank the students and alumni who joined us. So we were at 33 at the max number of people on, and I hope you got some good information and that you can take with you, and like I said, leverage and make some things happen for yourselves in terms of recruitment and hiring. And understanding those processes as we go forward. Trey, any final remarks?
Just a couple of things. First off, thank you, Mary Jo, for helping organize this event and helping run things through with our panelists today. You did an excellent job, and thank you again to all of our panelists today. We really appreciate having you here today and talking to our fellow student members. I think we all had a fantastic time. Learned a lot, and it was a nice little way to spend a Friday afternoon. So we appreciate you all for being here. One thing that I did want to shout out to our student members, our next event is going to be on March 12th, scheduled for March 12th. We'll be sending out some more information about RSVPing and all those things, but that's about our Pathways to Public Service Leadership piece. We're going to have some local government leaders to share their personal and professional paths to public service, offering some advice on navigating a career in local government, and we encourage you to ask speakers about their public service experiences during that time. So we look forward to seeing you all then on March 12th. But again, finally, thank you everyone for being here today. We hope you have an excellent Friday. Enjoy your weekend with 3 to 4 holidays this week. I don't know, somebody was discussing them all. So thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it, and have a good one.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Everyone, thank you.